I wanted to go over one of the critical thinking questions in Chapter 4. So here I am in Module 2, and I'm going to scroll down here to the Learn chapter for Carbohydrates, Chapter 4, and then click on this link to get to your textbook. So here's the e-textbook, and I'm going to go down to the critical and creative thinking questions, and I like to do number 6. And it's saying here that this is a label from a hot breakfast cereal. And it's asking how much fiber and sugar is in this product. Is it a whole grain product? What does the label tell you about the amount of sugar it contains? And would you recommend this product to a friend? Why or why not? The first question is fairly easy. How much fiber and sugars does it provide? We can see that there are 3 grams of dietary fiber in this breakfast cereal, and 1 gram of that is soluble fiber. So this is a pretty reasonable amount of fiber for a breakfast cereal, so that's pretty good. But we see that it has 13 grams of sugars, and this I would say is fairly high because I like to look for cereals that have about 5 grams of sugar or less per serving, and this one has almost 3 times that amount. And we can see it's getting that because it has as its second ingredient sugar. The second question is this a whole grain product? And we see that this has whole grain rolled oats in it with some oat bran. So yes, this is a whole grain product. But we can also look at this a little bit deeper, and I'm going to go to another web page to show you more about that. This is a web page from the Whole Grains Council. There's a lot of information on their website, but I just wanted to go over this one page about the whole grain stamp. So there are 2 types of stamps. You may have seen these on their products. There's a basic stamp and there's a 100% stamp. And there's lots of different types of stamps that you'll see because they're going to tell you different amounts of grams per serving. And this little chart here explains pretty well what the basic stamp is versus the 100% stamp. So if you're looking at the basic stamp on a product, it means that there is whole grain in that product. There may be some extra bran germ or refined flour, and it must have a minimum of 8 grams of whole grain per serving. And that would be about 1/2 serving of whole grain in that product. Better is the 100% stamp on a product, and this is for a product where all the grain is whole grain, and it has 16 grams of whole grain per serving, at least. So let's go back to our Wiley Plus label here in the critical thinking question, and I would say that this product is not going to get the 100% whole grain stamp because it has some oat bran in it, and it also has extra sugar, and it's not going to be just 100% of the carbohydrates from whole grains. And you're never going to know exactly what you're getting unless it's got the whole grain product on it, because this 3 grams of fiber doesn't mean that it's the 8 grams of whole grain or the 16 grams of whole grain. This is just the amount of dietary fiber by weight. It's not telling you the amount of whole grain per weight. So those stamps can be very helpful, and I encourage you to look for those on your food labels. There's lots of products that have them. And the other thing I wanted to point out, which will help teach you about the terms enrichment versus fortification, is to look at more of this ingredient label. So we see here that there's vitamin A added to this, niacinamide, which is the B vitamin niacin. There's some iron in this. Pyridoxine hydrochloride, we're going to learn later in the course, is vitamin B6. There's some riboflavin, thiamine, and folic acid added too. So they have little stars next to them because they're B vitamins. So is this an enriched product or is it a fortified product? So let's go to section 4.1, and they define the difference between enrichment and fortification here. So the definition of enrichment is the addition of specific amounts of thiamine, riboflavin, niacin, and iron to refined grains. And folic acid has also been added since 1998. So that's the definition of enrichment. And it says here that enrichment is a type of fortification. So fortification just means the addition of nutrients to foods. So back to the critical and creative thinking question, this is both an enriched and a fortified food. It's enriched with thiamine, niacin, iron, riboflavin, and folic acid, and it's fortified with vitamin A and vitamin B6. So you can have a food that's both enriched and fortified at the same time. And the last question, when I recommend this product to a friend, I would recommend my friend look for another product that doesn't have added sugars and salts and artificial colors and flavors. I think you could use a hot cereal like just plain rolled oats and add dried fruit to make it a little bit sweeter, and some milk, which will be fortified with vitamin A. And you could get a much better product than this if you were to compare the labels. Plus you could find something that doesn't have 13 grams of sugars. And maybe you could find something that has the 100% whole grain stamp of approval.